Hello and welcome to the newest episode of the Hospitable Hosts podcast. I am Ethan Brown, the Asia Pacific team lead here at Hospitable, and today I'm very grateful to be joined by Roman Solinik from Beyond. Welcome.
Thanks, Ethan. Great to be here.
Mate, like I said, stoked and very grateful that you took the time to join us, and I'm really glad to have the opportunity to pick your brain a little bit. Today, we're going to be specifically discussing leveraging dynamic pricing in the Australian short-term rental market, which is always a super hot topic. Before we kick things off and dive into the nitty gritty, I'd love it if you could explain what Beyond's dynamic pricing tool is and how it specifically caters to short-term rental hosts.
Yeah, no problem at all. So with Beyond, we pioneered dynamic pricing for the short-term rental industry back in 2013. So we've got over a decade of experience. Hotels and airlines, they've been using dynamic pricing for decades, right? We recognize that there was an opportunity for short-term rental providers to utilize this approach, basically to help automate an otherwise laborious process and ultimately help drive more revenue by getting the right bookings at the right time, at the right price. Since we've launched, we've expanded to be an entire revenue management system. So giving short-term rental providers the keys to drive more revenue, maximize profitability, and ultimately gain intelligence about their markets. We focus solely on short-term rental data. So we analyze about 6 billion data points on a daily basis from all the major online travel agencies, so the likes of Airbnb, VRBO. It allows us to understand the exact supply and demand of short-term rental properties in a particular market and neighborhoods. And we fluctuate prices depending on this data. So as an example, we know exactly how many one-bedroom apartments are available in, let's say, Collingwood in Melbourne at any given moment in time. So the supply side. We then see what the booking patterns are around midweek to weekend, around particular events, and the seasonality of the area. So looking at demand side of the market. Now, using this data will automate the pricing process. So we'll adjust your prices in line with that demand data. So essentially, when demand is high, we'll optimize for the best possible daily rates. We'll adjust your prices higher. When demand is low, we'll be more flexible with the rates to get you the optimal levels of occupancy. So our market data essentially helps property managers ensure their prices are as accurate as possible and in line with the market trends. It removes the need to continuously spend time and effort on also tracking these trends, right, as they're constantly changing. The data is refreshed every 24 hours, and in turn, the prices for our property manager clients and host clients are updated every 24 hours, depending on those movements. So that data-driven approach helps our clients grow revenue on average by around about 18% in the first 12 months, and of course frees up time and effort from pricing so they can focus on growing their business.
Awesome. Wow, that's incredible. Did you say 6 billion data points?
Yeah, around 6 billion data points on a daily basis. It's pretty
Oh my
crazy.
God. Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And I guess, when you hear that figure, it really does dawn on you the ability for a dynamic pricing software to be able to have that kind of impact versus a manual process. Because I'm sure you still have conversations, and I know I do in my role here at Hospitable, with users who are still taking that manual approach. And there's definitely something to be said for local knowledge of an area. Like, as hosts, we have a lot of benefit in being in a local area, knowing that. But when you compare that to 6 billion daily data points, that's pretty incredible. Wow. Could you tell me a little bit more about your role at Beyond?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a enterprise, a senior account executive at Beyond. I've been here for 2 years. I'm from the hospitality industry, so I previously worked for Expedia for around 4 years. But my role with Beyond is essentially looking after new partnerships with hosts and professional property managers, engaging with them, driving conversations, and ultimately setting up new partnerships across Australia, New Zealand, and the EMEA region.
Awesome. Awesome. And also being an excellent conference speaker.
Yeah, that was Strive. My first time in Strive. Yeah, it was very nerve wracking. Yeah,
Yeah.
officially now a public speaker. Yeah, so,
Yeah, bit of context there for the listeners. Rowan and I, were lucky enough to meet at the Strive conference in Melbourne earlier this year. So, if you're in Australia or you're in the Asia Pacific region, or if you're somewhere further afield and you're interested to learn more about what we're discussing today, but anything in regards to anything short term rental related, highly recommend checking out the Strive conference. And we'll be there again next year. 2025 blows my mind that we're talking about and organizing things for 2025 already. But that's awesome. Can you tell me a little bit more around like that all sounds excellent, like beyond services. As a host, can you tell me a little bit more how that works? Like, what would I expect if, say, I was a Hospitable user? How would that integrate with Hospitable, and how would I expect that to work, basically?
yeah, no problem at all. One thing I want to touch on is what you mentioned around, local knowledge as well, just before heading into that answer, and the data points from our side that we analyze. Of course, what our main goal is to empower our clients, so like property managers and individual hosts, to be more effective in what they do. So it's a combination of that local knowledge, the relationships with the owners, relationships with the guests, and combined with all the data that we can provide on the market trends, how things are shifting, how bookings are coming in, how occupancy is pacing, to essentially empower our clients to be more effective with their pricing, and ultimately, help grow their business. On
Yeah.
the hospitable side of things, in terms of the integration and how it works for hosts and property managers, we have a direct integration with Hospitable, which means it's super quick and easy to get set up. Essentially, all you need is an API key from the Hospitable dashboard to get connected to Beyond. We also have comprehensive onboarding for clients to ensure that everything is set up for success from the very beginning of the partnership. Once we connect and activate pricing, Beyond will push fresh rates every 24 hours directly to the Hospitable account.
Yeah.
Hospitable will then distribute these rates to the channels that they have connected, whether it's the direct website, Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, and so on. So it's really quick and easy for hosts and property managers to start benefiting from the automation and accuracy of pricing that our dynamic pricing algorithm provides. Also, on top of that, they'll get access to Beyond's dashboard. So hosts and property managers have access to a huge amount of data for their individual listings, their property portfolio, and crucially, the performance of that listing or the portfolio against the market's performance. So that data-driven approach can help with decision making when it comes to pricing, distribution, marketing, owner relationship management, and to be honest, so much more. But in terms of the integration with Hospitable, we've been integrated for a number of years now. It's super quick and easy, and it's set up to make it as easy as possible for hosts and property managers to benefit from that connection.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, I think that's probably the one thing that I've found using dynamic pricing is as a host myself, is that it allows, I guess, automating that side of the pricing. Like you mentioned, it goes beyond just dynamic pricing, but having that pricing automated, it can loop back to that local knowledge and like the actual guest experience that you provide as a host. Because when you're not spending an hour a day or an hour a week, depends on how many listings you've got, like probably going to be a couple hours a week realistically that you would spend setting your prices, if you were trying to do it manually. If you're automating that through the integration, then it allows you to take that time and put it into your guest experience, or like put it into your marketing and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's interesting. It's like a flow on effect outside of just having the dynamic pricing and all the benefits of that offers. We found that personally, we increased our revenue like maybe about 30% in the first year of
Oh,
using dynamic pricing, which is quite excellent. I think you mentioned 18%. Like, any sort of I guess increase in revenue of that magnitude is quite significant. So definitely something to be keeping an eye on for sure. I'm curious, and we touched on the data points, like 6 billion. Can you go into more detail around what types of data that Beyond uses to adjust that pricing, and how the data-driven approach gives an edge to hosts?
yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, right, we only focus on short-term rental data. So we use short-term rental occupancy data from the major OTAs to understand the supply and demand of a particular market and locality. Right? So will use both historical data going back up to 10 years to determine the probabilities of being booked on a particular date. And we look at forward-looking data for future occupancy to understand how booking pace is performing. So is the market pacing behind or ahead in terms of booking volumes compared to previous years? And so it's having the historical data of market performance and the future forward-looking data to get the price as accurate as possible. If I just use the Collingwood example again, right? If there's 100 one-bedroom apartments in Collingwood in Melbourne, we can see at any given moment in time how many of these are booked and how many are available, right? Which is a direct reflection of the demand into that particular market. So, for example, if we see that 80 of those apartments are booked, future occupancy is showing that demand is pacing ahead of the same time last year, we'll automatically increase prices to drive the best possible daily rates for the 20 listings that are left available. On the flip side, if only 20 listings are booked and demand is actually pacing behind on previous years, so bookings are coming in slower, we'll be more flexible with that rate and optimize for the best possible occupancy for that property in line with the market. Now,
Awesome.
that data as well is refreshed every 24 hours. And we look at important factors like the day of the week impact on demand. So, are weekends busier than midweek? The seasonality impact on booking trends, and any events that drive high demand during particular periods. So that data allows us to efficiently fluctuate prices depending on the data points. So a weekend-driven market will naturally have more flexible rates midweek to drive good occupancies, higher rates in the weekends to drive more revenue to capitalize on that increased weekend demand. Similarly, if there's an event that spikes demand, let's say the F1 Grand Prix, for example, or a big rugby game, prices will increase automatically to capitalize on these demand spikes and get the best possible daily rates. And going back to the seasonality factor, seasonal markets will naturally have higher rates in the high season and be more flexible in the shoulder months.
Awesome.
One other aspect as well to add is we pioneered dynamic pricing back in 2013. Over the last 18 months, we've also pioneered the use of search data to power pricing. So for our partners, we can track the search data from their direct website to understand guest preferences, booking patterns, demand for particular dates in the future. We'll then combine this search data with the occupancy data from the OTAs to add even more accuracy to the pricing, right? So say, for instance, a new event is announced for a particular date. We can see the search demand for these dates and increase prices in real time to ensure that no money is being left on the table. And essentially, then by utilizing this, it just allows our partners to have more accurate prices given the performance of the market. The reliance solely on historical data, often we find that property managers or hosts will use their own kind of historical booking patterns to set rates, but relying on historical booking data when trends change continuously, it's risky and can lead to either a lack of occupancy or the risk of leaving money on the table. So utilizing both historical and future looking data allows our partners to stay on top of these trends automatically, right? Without having to spend a huge amount of time and effort into researching what these trends are. So ultimately, the data-driven approach helps them get better occupancy, get better daily rates, drive more revenue for their properties, get more income for their business and more income for their owners. So everyone leaves happy, and it's a win-win.
Awesome. I love that. I think I definitely agree with the risks of viewing solely based on the past. Like the past never fully predicts the future in terms of rates or anything in life, I guess. But I think
Exactly.
especially, and in Australia as hosts or in APAC, we know most definitely that there's been a period of flux, and like with like if we look at Australia and New Zealand potentially, like you consider the hard lockdown borders that we had through the period of restrictions over the last few years. That's one thing that you just a perfect example of how taking past reservations and past data on revenue may adversely impact your expectations in the future. So yeah, you definitely need to have that eye on the future as well. I'm curious there, did you mention that Beyond has the ability to check direct booking website prices? Is that what you said?
So we use essentially a new tool that we launched last year, which is search powered pricing and search powered insights. So we
Awesome.
have a tool called Beacon that we can install on the direct website of our partners. So whether it's
Yeah.
hosts or property managers, and what we can do is track the consumer search demand on that website and combine
Awesome.
that search data with the online travel agency data that we have access to adjust prices in real time, not just every 24 hours. If I use the F1 example again, right, because once the F1 happens, they'll wait a bit before announcing the next date, right? So
Yeah.
there's often a bit of a discrepancy as to when to raise the prices, when to lower them, what week to price it at.
Yeah.
What we can, with the search powered pricing aspect on your direct website, if they announce the new date before you get a chance to hear about it, right? Or if you're privy to it, you find out about it 24 hours later, but there's already been an influx of searches on your website. We'll automatically adjust your prices for that date in the future to make sure you're not losing out and not leaving any money on the table. But it's
Awesome.
the Beacon tool that tracks that. There's also another aspect of it, which is search powered insights, where we'll give you insights on where your guests are searching from on a global heat map. What dates are they searching for? What are the booking windows? What are the lengths of stay? What are the amenities that they're after? That can be used for a huge range of applications, whether it's owner conversations, because most people are searching pet friendly, but the owner won't allow dogs, whether it's length of stay restrictions, right? If you've got a 7-nighter, but most people are searching for 3 nights, it allows the adjustments. For your last minute discounts, the booking window information is crucial, so you're not discounting too early. So there's a lot of ways that the data can be applied, but that's
Awesome.
a new feature and a new tool that we launched in the last 18 months. And utilizing that search data tends to drive rates around key dates around about 9% higher. So you command 9% higher daily rates utilizing search data around key kind of events in the market.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. A couple of features that I had no idea existed. So it seems like I need to do a little bit more research personally, because that's super powerful, and they're pretty cool features. Thank you. We've touched on it now as well, like tourism and travel patterns and seasonality. But looking at the Australian market specifically, how does Beyond tailor its pricing tools to meet the regional differences in tourism and travel patterns here in Australia? How does that differ to other markets like the United States, for example?
Yeah, no problem. So we tailored the tool to the Australian market by leveraging the data that we have for the area, and of course our team, our expert team in short-term rentals, because we have teams of revenue managers and account managers that work with all of our partners and clients to make sure they're getting the most out of the tool. We don't rely on a single source of data either. Unlike other tools, we will use both scrape data from the OTAs and source data. What I mean by source data is from our connected accounts. So we price around 400,000 listings globally. So scrape data is gathered from online travel agencies. So it provides insights into posted prices, calendar availability. Source data includes book rates, occupancy, length of stay, booking lead times. It's more informative and accurate, essentially. Our data science and revenue management teams then analyze this data. They'll consider local and national events, seasonality, hyperlocal factors like differences between suburbs and downtown areas. Now, this detailed process takes around 1 to 2 weeks for each market. So every single market that we launch and the clusters or the sub-markets inside that are hand launched and analyzed by an individual revenue manager or data scientist. Now, our approach to the Aussie market or the Australian market differs from the US market, where regional factors and travel patterns require distinct adjustments based on different drivers and seasonality. So the data science and revenue management team, they're here to ensure our approach is specific to the Aussie market. So they take into account those local, seasonal, etc. factors specific to Australia. I guess on a macro level, the Australia holiday home market has seen shifts in key performance indicators over the last 6 months. Like while lower average daily rates drove a slight increase in occupancy rates, revenue per available night has seen a marginal decline. Specifically, holiday homes within the last 6 months in all of Australia saw around a 6.5% rise in occupancy, but an ADR decrease by around about 11.5%, and revenue per available night did fall by about 6%. But some markets have behaved differently. Right? For example, in Sydney, in response to fluctuating demand, many hosts and property managers opted to lower their ADRs. Now, that strategic move actually paid off. So it attracted more bookings, increased occupancy rates, ultimately led to higher overall profits. So what we saw was a 7.9% rise in occupancy. ADRs did decrease by 4.8%, but revenue per available night actually increased by 5.8%. This is for Sydney. So when it comes to kind of guest behaviors, booking lead times are shrinking in markets across Australia, highlighting the rise of kind of last minute travel and changing guest preferences. And also, like, we see that Airbnb is the most popular booking and distribution channel. So with us or beyond, our solution takes all of these specific trends in Australia into account to ensure our customers are priced competitively and positioned to be booked at the best price at the best time, essentially.
Awesome. I thank you so much for the data insights. It's really interesting, like, because the market is so rapidly changing all the time, like what we spoke about. But then also the fact that like, to talk about even just the Australian market is difficult because there's markets within markets. There's it really does need to go to that granular level. Like, even just to say Sydney, like, it's such a it's a massive city, and one host that has a property on Bondi Beach mansion might have to tackle the way that they handle their pricing differently to someone who has apartment in the CBD, for example. So it's awesome to dive deeper into the specific cities, and really interesting because I think that kind of the data reflects what is the ground truth in a way. Like, the conversations that we're having with hosts on a regular basis might be that potentially the reservation, like their nightly rates might have decreased, or they might have taken that decision to actively decrease that, because all in all, it comes to maximizing revenue, not necessarily maximizing occupancy or nightly rate. That you really need to keep an eye on that, the delicate balance, to make sure that you really are increasing the revenue altogether, not just your occupancy. That's great. Thank you. I think we touched on it for the seasonal variations. I'm curious, is there anything unique that Beyond does for Australia in regards to handling seasonal variations down under?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like seasonal variations in the market, like in particularly in popular tourist destinations within Australia, it's utilizing that data source and the expertise, right? So again, the data science and the revenue management team will analyze both scrape and source data to capture those trends in posted prices, availability, booked rates, and occupancy. So it allows us to identify and anticipate these seasonal demand fluctuations. I guess it also boils down to what you mentioned, right? Not just the market. Like, Australia has multiple different markets and markets within the markets, right? So it comes back down to the human element, where we'll go in and review each individual market and create sub-markets or clusters within that area to get down to as accurate as possible, right? For that kind of area, to understand these seasonal kind of variations. So we can constantly review and verify the data. So we'll take into account things like local events, holidays, school holidays. Obviously, school holidays also differ by state, right? And by region. So seeing what impact that has in different areas. Now we'll adjust like the pricing strategies accordingly, right? To in line with those like local events, holidays, specific tourist patterns around the seasonality. And we'll adjust these to maximize the revenue during the peak seasons. It goes back to that, and optimize for occupancy during the off period. Right? So it's finding that right balance of strong ADRs in the peak periods, good occupancies in the off peak or the shoulder months, and that kind of tailored approach ensures our pricing tools are responsive to these unique seasonal dynamic of each tourist destination in Australia.
Awesome, very cool. And I guess outside of just a one or a couple word answer, which would be using Beyond, can you give me some key strategies that hosts should consider to maximize their rental income? Income, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So in terms of like key strategies, right, to maximize income, it is automate the pricing process, right? Like we mentioned, it is quite a laborious, time-consuming process, and the ability to analyze obscene amounts of data, right, is very humanly difficult, right? But automating pricing, leveraging dynamic pricing tools to automatically adjust your rates based on real-time demand and competition, right? This helps you to stay competitive, helps you attract more bookings, even when demand is lower. And it's going to save you hours of time so that you can focus it on whether you want to grow your portfolio through acquisition, whether it's owner management, whether it's just guest experience and keeping the guests happy, to help you free up time and effort to make your business more successful and grow your business ultimately. The other aspect in terms of strategies is know your market, right? Understanding your market, of course, is essential. So researching local trends, customer preferences, booking patterns, upcoming events that might affect demand will help you keep on top of these trends. The other aspect is like getting to know your competitors. Keep an eye on what your competitors are doing. You can monitor their pricing, promotions, reviews to ensure that your offering remains attractive and competitive, right? This can be quite easily done within Beyond's revenue management system. You have access to comprehensive comp sets that are customizable. You can see the occupancies and the prices that are being pushed to help you understand whether you're in line and you're following the right kind of patterns of the market. I guess it's adopting forward looking strategies, right? With the ups and downs of the last few years, as you mentioned, right? Historical data alone is no longer sufficient for effective revenue management. So staying ahead of these trends and pivoting your strategies proactively is crucial to avoid missed bookings and lost profits. I guess just to touch upon in terms of know your market, but also know your guests or your guest preferences, right? So understanding like the booking patterns of your guests, but what they're searching for, things like their amenities, booking windows can allow you to be more effective in promoting the right property at the right time, getting the right booking, and also for acquisition efforts, right? Understanding what guests want so that you're not potentially adding properties to your portfolio that aren't going to appeal to guests. It'll just make you more effective and efficient in your day-to-day operations.
Awesome, I love it. And I guess with while we're talking about having an eye on the future, and we talked about a couple of features that you guys already have that I didn't actually know existed, which is very cool. But going forward, can you give me any insight into what future enhancements users can expect from Beyond, and how you further plan to support the needs of hosts in Australia and beyond?
Yeah, of course. No. So we're focused on leading the short term rental industry when it comes to revenue management innovation. Where I touched upon the search powered pricing aspect, the search powered insights. We also have market insights and a number of tools. But in terms of when we're looking at the future, right, we're constantly delivering new products and feature updates. So we classify these developments in a few different ways, but we've got upcoming efficiency tools, which is grid view updates. So we're bringing a fresh look to our grid view in our pricing tool to help hosts efficiently manage calendars across all of their listings. So there'll be new formatting and filtering options will help to manage availability at scale, whilst also providing an easy way for users to update prices, customizations, and more. Also, time-based adjustments, right? We'll have even more customizations within time-based adjustments. So allowing for automatic changes to minimum stays and changeover days, in addition to an existing suite of time-based customizations. So we already have quite a range of time-based adjustments, whether it's things like your last-minute discounts, far-out premiums, minimum stays, time-based minimum stays. But we're also additionally adding new features that to make it even more comprehensive. On the reporting and analytics side, there'll be on the owner reporting, there's new reports available and beyond that will help users support positive relationships with owners and other key stakeholders by essentially easily highlighting performance metrics and comparisons. So how the property is doing against the market, against the metrics that have been set. Also activity logs, right? So you can review a record of all property setting changes, booking activity notes, and more to make it easier to understand how these have been trending or what your changes or the changes that you made, what impact they've had. And in terms of projections, right now, projections are super important, a key requirement when looking at the kind of new owner conversations or acquisition effort. So we'll support the creation of like performance projection reports for hosts and property managers to use when recruiting new owners or properties into their portfolio. And then lastly, on the data and revenue management side, so like hyperlocal cluster optimization. So what I mentioned is we break down the markets into individual clusters, right, to get as much accuracy as possible. So our data science and revenue management team, they're constantly reviewing and upgrading our hyperlocal market clusters for optimal pricing. We don't just kind of launch the world in a day. We build and maintain each market by hand as dynamics and data changes over time. And as areas perhaps expand or contract, right, we make these adjustments. We recently actually revamped our entire Australian market and cluster data pipeline to basically ensure all these markets and clusters properly represent hyperlocal supply and the demand changes within that area. We also ensure that all relevant events are priced appropriately for each neighborhood, and that we're accounting for all nuances in pricing for the day of the week and the time of the year, hyper locally. So those are just a couple of things that future enhancements to expect, but we continuously work on essentially continuous improvement and iteration to the tool to make sure it's as effective and brings as much value to our clients and partners as it continuously and as it develops.
Wow, epic! That is pretty incredible. Firstly, I love the point on like focusing on like future enhancements around helping hosts at scale. I think that's something that Hospitable have had focus on recently as well, because we find that when hosts start automating their guest experience, say, or their channel management through Hospitable, they more often than not, like the vast majority of our hosts will scale, because automating one part of the, I guess, hosting experience, whether that's guest experience or pricing, enables you to not only have more time to improve your guest experience, like what we spoke about earlier, but also it enables you to have more time to scale your business too, because we are hosts, but we're also business owners, all of us. So that's exciting, and it's awesome to hear of those features coming in the future. That was a lot, though. I think there's so much happening. If any of our listeners want to reach out to you guys, what's the best way? Is it online reaching out, or where will we find you to find out more?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn. Get me via email, via WhatsApp, phone call, whatever is the easiest way to reach out. But of course, our team is always reachable via email or a phone call, and we'd be more than happy to arrange a conversation to provide an insight into what Beyond can do. And the beauty of the integration with Hospitable as well is we can look at what we call personalized demos or connected demos, where we can plug in via the direct integration, which takes a couple of minutes, directly into the host's, the property manager's Hospitable account. And then we can combine our market data with their property data and the locations that they're in to give them an insight into exactly what Beyond can do for their business, which gives a really good indication of the value that we can bring, and to give the hosts and owners an opportunity to evaluate it fully. But yeah, we're reachable across many channels, and always very happy to speak with new potential partners.
Awesome. That sounds great. I love the idea of that style of demo. I think that particularly beneficial for hosts, in that everybody's business is different. So being able to have a view of how it could impact and improve your business and your revenue is super powerful. Thank you so much. We've come up to time. It was excellent to pick your brain today, and thank you so much for giving the insights for our host today.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here. And thanks a lot.
Cheers, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.